Okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home had one of the best endings to a comic book movie ever. The film was packed with returning heroes and villains, as well as some major deaths that will truly alter the future of the franchise. However, there were actually a lot of changes made to the production, and now that spoilers are hitting the web in terms of what was originally supposed to be in the film, we actually know a lot more about the intended plans for the movie. Like most movie studios, Marvel's production slate was affected by the pandemic, and we actually now know that the film was supposed to tie into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness a lot more. If you cast your mind back to the beginning of 2021, then you might remember that the Strange sequel was supposed to release in May, but it was then delayed to November. However, after No Way Home was shifted by Sony to that month, the Multiverse of Madness was pushed back too. Further delays meant that No Way Home dropped in December, and because of reshoots, Multiverse of Madness will drop in May. Now because of this, we now know that major characters were removed from No Way Home, who will be showing up in the Doctor Strange sequel. Though we don't know all the ins and outs of that movie, we do know that America Chavez will be playing a big part in it, and that she will be capable of opening portals in the multiverse. From the first trailer on the film, it looks like America and Strange will be teaming up and having an adventure across multiple franchises together. Now how that ties into No Way Home is that America was actually supposed to feature in the film. Due to concept art that's just been released on the movie, we now know that she was actually going to be the person that pulled Andrew and Tobey into the MCU. You might remember that in the final film it was Ned who did this after he tapped into some of his wonderful wizarding abilities. However, the concept art shows America at the centre of how they came into the main universe. We now have two images of this, including her at the Statue of Liberty battle hanging off a crane. The Green Goblin can be seen flying through the air, and it is possible that America actually ended up pulling Strange out of the mirror dimension. I do think this makes a lot of sense, as I did kinda take Strange having to redo the spell 5 times, meaning that was the reason that the 5 villains came across. However, Andrew and Tobey too got pulled in, and it was only when Ned wished to see them that they appeared. Potentially, Ned and MJ could have gone to America for help, like the Brits did during World War II. See, topical jokes at the channel. Now she might then have looked at the villains and those who had defeated them in the past, and this is why she brought the pair across. In the concept art, we can see that they're at Dodgems, and amongst Ned and MJ are Peter, Betty and Flash. If you look at America's hand, she's also holding a book, and this may or may not be the Darkhold, which was last seen at the end of WandaVision. Going forward, it's going to be interesting to see if Ned continues to be a sorcerer or not, as I think forgetting Peter might also mean that he doesn't remember using the sling ring to look for him. In the comics, Ned actually went on to become a version of the Hobgoblin, and they might even end up going in that direction. It's kinda interesting to know that because the movie switched release orders, that characters had to be taken out, and we also now know that Venom's role was heavily cut down too. According to New Rockstar's early drafts of the script had Tobey Maguire's Peter dying during the final showdown. I'm guessing that this comes at the part in which Norman stabs him in the side, but it may have come earlier. At this point, Venom was going to show up, and Tobey's version would be revived by the symbiote. In case you don't know, Venom and the rest of the symbiotes all share a hive mind, and they can tap into each other's memories and thoughts. This spans across the multiverse, and it's also the reason that Venom was able to come into the MCU without meeting Peter or knowing who he was. Tobey, of course, ended up bonding with the symbiote in Spider-Man 3, and though it gave him killer dance moves, he ended up tearing it off, which is when it went onto that version's Eddie Brock. I think it's really interesting that it was going to bring him back to life, and potentially Brock might have been sent back to the Sonyverse just as Tobey and Andrew also returned home. However, a part of him might have been left behind at the Statue of Liberty, much like what we see in the post-credits scene, and now having already attached to a Peter Parker variant, it would know that they were a match. This could have set it out on a quest to join with Tom Holland's version, which is probably what we're going to be getting anyway, they just went about it a different way. Now I do kind of prefer Venom showing up in all honesty, as I think the post-credits scene was a bit of a disappointment, as I was expecting the pair to face off before Venom returned home. However, there are rumours that Venom will run into a version of Peter in his next film, but whether that's Tom, Andrew or Tobey, we don't know yet. Now I think Venom definitely needs a big introduction, and speaking of introductions, if this is your first time here, then welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who went to a bar and left before he got to meet the kid like Eddie Brock. On a completely unrelated note, yeah, my wife is actually pregnant with twins right now, and they're due in February, which I know some of you are already aware of. I'm going to be doing a big announcement on it in the next couple of days, but we've got some great new people on board the channel who are going to make it so the content can just keep coming and coming. Hopefully I'll get to be there for them more than Uncle Ben, and if you enjoy the video, we'd massively appreciate you hitting the subscribe button so you can stick around on the channel. Anyway, Tobey and Andrew's future in the MCU is still uncertain, but there are rumours that the original post-credit scene for the movie was supposed to feature the pair in their own universes. In an interview with Variety, screenwriters Eric Summer and Chris McKenna revealed they had several different ending tags involving them, but they were all cut for the Multiverse of Madness trailer. Now, though this might be disappointing to learn, I actually think it's a good sign, and let me tell you why. The fact that they're removing scenes featuring the pair makes me think that it's because they have certain ideas that they want for them in future movies. Taking the two out could mean that they don't actually want to lock them into a plot thread that they're going to have to tie into a movie down the line. If you look at the MCU slate over the last couple of years, there have been some issues caused due to things changing behind the scenes that have affected certain movies. Originally, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was supposed to release before Thor: Love and Thunder, but after Disney fired James Gunn, he went to work for DC. He then created Suicide Squad before he agreed to come back, and they had to reverse the release order of things, much like what we talked about earlier. We last left Thor with the Guardians at the end of Avengers Endgame, and according to rumours, he was going to feature heavily in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. However, with Love and Thunder releasing before that, they're going to have to tie up their travels in that film before he goes off onto his own adventure with Jane Foster becoming Thor. So I kind of feel like they don't have things set in stone with the pair, and just want to take it slow. Take it slow, and then we can see where they can go. Andrew Garfield has stated that he'd love to come back, and I can't see Sony turning down the opportunity to make money, so I do think that we will see the actor in upcoming projects. Garfield especially seems to have received a lot of love for his return. I think it would be great to have him going off on his own timeline in the Sonyverse whilst Tom remains in the MCU. If they could tie Andrew into live-action Spider-Verse things, then it opens up a lot of opportunities for characters like Spider-Gwen and even Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir. There's so many ways that they can take things, but those are the main stories in the film that we've learned in the last couple of days since all the cast and crew started talking spoilers. It's been an amazing journey, plus no Doctor Strange spell could ever make me forget this shit. Whole scene is burned into my brain. Check out those dance moves, goddamn! Check them out, goddamn! Now, I'd of course love to hear your thoughts, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We are in a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of an MCU box set of your choice on the 30th of January, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the video. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the interview with Andrew Garfield, in which he finally tells all. He talks about working with Tobey Maguire, what it meant to come back, and a lot more, so it's definitely worth checking out right after this. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.